Next item on the agenda is 2020-10-03, and this is to be introduced by Commissioner Gibson, and he's asked if there would be any objections from the commission. That we have several people here tonight that has some information that we need to be updated on, that if they could present their case before, he's leaning toward delaying this, is the reason I'm saying this, but we still need to hear from these people if there's no objections from the commission without putting this on the floor.
I've got objection.
Okay. Commissioner Gibson.
Thank you, Mr. Brewer. To the Honorable Rick Brewer, Chairman, members of the Hawkins County Board of Commissioners, regular session met this 26th day of October 2020, resolution in reference authorizing the issuance of general obligation school bond of Hawkins County, Tennessee, in the aggregate principal amount not to exceed $9,600,000 in one more series, making provision for the issuance and sale and payment of said bonds, establishing the terms thereof and the deposition of the proceeds therefrom, providing for the levy of taxes, for the payment of the principal of premium, levy, and interest on the bonds. It says, please see attached resolution on the issuance of school bonds for any division of grants to school and all county school systems. Chairman, I so move.
Motion by Commissioner Gibson, is there a second? Second by Commissioner Jones. We're open up for discussion. I guess we need to recognize who first.
Commission would allow, I'd like to introduce Scott Gibson from the Bond Council to start things off, and then any further questions myself or staff can address those.
Thank you, everyone. My name is Scott Gibson. I'm with Coleman Securities. I've been asked to come here tonight to kind of explain what we're trying to do. There is a resolution in front of you, as Commissioner Gibson did put on the floor, for not to exceed $9,600,000. We have the schools here, which the work will be done on. We have representatives of Train and their team here to answer your questions about the specific projects. I did hand out a preliminary school funding analysis, so everyone should have this here. It outlines the projected amortization of the schools. That's on page 2 in the report, but I really want everyone to kind of focus on page 3. And we've been through this page 3 before. That's the back page. It has a graph on it, and so the $9.6 million would be the new blue bars outlined on this graph on the back of this report. And then these lines here represent the fund balance in the Education Debt Service Fund, and these lines represent various tax increases or not, a lack of tax increases, about where the fund balance would be at the end of the bond payment. And so we've had some discussions for the last few months about this bond issue, and during the first presentation we talked with the budget committee about various tax increases that we would recommend to move forward based on trying to maintain the fund balance. And so we went back and put it in a graph, as you can see. So if the county wants to move forward with this project, I think it's a project that both the training people will tell you that it needs to be done. And this is not this is finance about 2/3 of the project, the other third resolution packet that you can consider tonight moving forward for energy efficiency school initiative. Along that is a program through the state of Tennessee. They have provided approximately $4.9 million and change for the county to be paid back on a 16-year basis at 0.5 of 1%. So it's a very low rate that would fund a portion of the renovations of the schools. This is part of the program. so it's really self-supporting. It doesn't take any money from the county commission. Really, the schools, from their electric bills being lower, will pay for that part of the project. And this part of the project, there should be some energy savings out there, but they're hard to measure. I don't know if some of you went on the tours of the schools, but the schools are actually probably heating and cooling more space above the ceilings than they are below the ceilings from all the holes in the ductwork. And so, since it's hard to measure how big those holes are and how much air is being lost, it's hard to figure out how much savings the schools will have. But that is something that needs to be taken care of. And so, going back to this bond issue, which would take care of that, the question comes down to, you know, where are we today and what can we do to try to make the schools better, especially in this pandemic for all the kids out there. And so, if the county commission moves forward, this red line represents what would happen if we just moved forward, did not have a tax increase for the next 20 years, and where the county's fund balance would go. And so while your fund balance in that fund's a little over $9 million now, you could do this bond issue without a tax increase. Your fund balance would drop down to right about $3 million, which is still a decent amount of fund balance in the year 2038, which is 18 years from now. So assuming no new growth in the penny and no new funds for that fund, we still think you could pay for this project, although you would use a substantial portion of your fund balance. If at some point in the future, the county were to implement a 2-cent tax increase or move 2 pennies from one fund to this fund in the future, the green line represents that. The fund balance never gets below $6 million in that scenario. And then if we could find 5 pennies in the future, that represents the blue line, which basically shows that the fund balance really never drops below $9 million, which is a very substantial and strong fund balance, and then over time would probably actually grow. So I wanted to point out from the beginning conversations to today that this conversation is really about, it's not, can the county not afford to do this? You can afford to do this project, and you can afford to do it without a tax increase. The question is, though, over the next 20 years, could it be possible to find a penny or two to put back into that fund so that we can at least keep those fund balances from dropping all the way down to $3 million and try to hold them in the $5 to $6 million range if we can find a couple pennies. And if you can find more pennies over time, you know, we could even maybe build that fund balance back up to where it is today. That is kind of an overview of the financing part of this. And I did mention the school resolution out there. So I'll be answering questions of financing. The team is here, and they will, if you would like to, get into some of the projects that they're proposing, or the school folks too. So any questions?
Did you have a question? Mr. Parker?
Okay, so just looking at your graph and stuff, the red line decrease, this is based off of the assumption that everything within the school system in the county, we wouldn't have any other emergencies come up. Is that correct?
That would assume that, that actually is a really good question. That does assume that the county would not do any more debt without a future tax increase. So that doesn't prohibit the county from doing a future project, but in the future, if we're going to do a project, we would probably recommend a new revenue source to pay for it. In this case, you have enough revenue, but there's not probably enough revenue to do this and another project on top of that without some type of, you know, revenue enhancement. But that being said, that was one of the first questions I asked the school a few months ago when we got started in this process. And I said, look, you know, let's say we do this project, use some fund balance now. My question back to the schools is, what's the next project that is out there, and how are we going to maintain our school buildings and stuff if we are using some of this fund balance? If we really can't come back to this fund, you know, a couple years down the road and have another, you know, what you're really asking. And so the school told me, and I can speak for themselves, but you know, they really don't have a big project out there. If we can get through this high school HVAC and lights and all the energy efficiency improvements that we're going to do, that is one good. And two, the county and the schools, they have gone back and put a capital projects fund, which I started last year. And so with that capital fund, that school budget, they have now set aside to help maintain some of these buildings they have. And so not only do they have their budget, and it's some other government consolidation schools down, should free up some operating funds in the future also, that they can pile back into maintenance and other
Projects such as this, once one is bid out in the state that's similar or like the project, we can piggyback those bids and make sure that we're getting the best use of the dollar for those projects.
Well, when the state starts paying for it, they can direct us who to bid it out to.
Well, I'm just addressing your question legally.
I agree. And another thing, if I read it correctly, if we go with this train, this $135,000 is in with the contract, right? To bid. What happens if we don't?
For $135,000, we did have to bring in a company, just like we would if we bid it out. A company would have to come in and utilize an architect and an engineer to study the project, as well as do an energy cost analysis, which was done for the $136,000. So if we do not use Train for whatever purpose in the future, we would pay back their time and effort for that detailed study and engineering and mechanical drawings.
Were you aware of that before you?
Yes, sir. It was very well discussed and openly discussed at our board meetings leading up to this.
Where are you going to get the funds if it's not approved?
We've got the funds. We've got the funds to the funds for what?
This $136,000.
We've got the funds to pay that back if we don't wind up using Train and have to go somewhere else. And then we're going to have to turn around and have somebody else do the study and engineering.
Are you aware of this lobbyist that's making the phone calls?
I am after the fact. Mr. Brewer has talked to me about that.
Rex, Lieutenant Governor, this is a new low for Hawkins County.
New low for Hawkins County.
To have to hire a firm with a lobbyist to call and sell the product.
That was not instigated by Hawkins County, sir.
It is by Train.
I can tell you flat out we were not aware of that, and any insinuation that we were doing that is blatantly incorrect.
Well, we have a chance to correct it, don't we?
We have a chance to correct. I don't know, is that a question?
Are you aware of some of maybe your inner circle is going to benefit from this also?
There is nobody in my organization that's going to benefit one iota from this deal. We
Wow.
sought them out. They did not seek us out. We sought them out because we started an energy project to replace our lighting that generated $300,000 of savings a year, which allows us to go for the Energy Savings Initiative, EESI, to help fund a third of what this project that has been lingering for 10 plus years is going to cost us to redo.
If I remember correctly, that lighting, when we approved it in 15 or 16, it will be paid off next year.
It'll be paid off late in the fall this next year, yes.
We're going to have to put a stop on the spending. Big time.
With all due respect, when we have to make upgrades, we're going to try to find a way to do so utilizing savings and as cheap as we can. As presented tonight, there is no tax raise or increase that's necessary for this, at least for the foreseeable future. The fact of the matter is we have a need that needs to be rectified, and this is the best way by which we feel we can accomplish that need in the shortest amount of time. If it's turned down tonight, we will go back to the drawing board and we will readdress this, but the fact of the matter is that need stays there, and we will be on the hook for future fees associated with costing this out and sending it to bid. However, I will tell you that we did, because I've listened to several commissioners, and I want to thank everybody that was able to go to the school site visits and ask questions and participate in that. And I know that you all got letters and personal invites for that process. I do want to mention that we did talk to Train, because the big perception was that we didn't get bids, even though we have full legal standing not to have to proceed on those, because that bid process is lengthy and it doesn't always result in a cheaper cost savings for the district in this case. We did go back to Train, and the perception has been that we needed to be a little bit more transparent, or at least coming from some commissioners, that was the process. Train has authorized or we have authorized Train, sorry, to allow them to receive bids for everything not covered by the EESI this evening. So if that makes a difference, before you all vote, we do have a plan for them to seek bids for everything not covered with the $5 million this evening. And that may drive down the cost of some of the remaining 9.6. But I still recommend, as Scott mentioned, that if the bond goes forward, that it's not to exceed 9.6, so that we have that ability to spend up to that and hopefully shy of that in getting this equipment and ductwork replaced.
Thank you.
I've got a question for Mr. Dixon.
Is it all right? I'll go ahead and recognize Mr. Housewright since he's,
Yeah, I'm fine with it.
okay. Mr. Housewright, go ahead.
Mr. Dixon, you said that you didn't, under the Tennessee code, you didn't have to have bids, but under any kind of big developments or projections, isn't it wise to get estimates, in my opinion? But my first question to you is, do you know how many heat pumps is on top of each school?
17 each school. They're self-contained units, HVAC and heat units.
And how many are on top of each school?
17 on each school.
Okay, that was fine, okay, and let's go if there was a 3-ton, 5-ton, 10-ton, 15-ton units, 17, and I broke it down, 3 10-ton, 3 15-ton, 8 5-ton enterprise, and 3 3-tons. You could break them up however you needed the airflow. From where I got the cost is about 115,000 times 2 would be 230. Just if you pick the units up. How many package of the gas package units on the outside are they? Each school, there's 33, correct?
33 at each school.
So that'd be 66. So from my calculations, what I found out they're about, you pick them up about 7,000. Let's just say you get 10,000 per unit, that's 660. So ours almost 9. Now let's just go $1 million on your units. Okay, then you get, from my understanding, it's going to be about 140,000 pounds of sheet metal. Am I correct on the ductwork?
105,000, I think. It is 140.
I thought it was 140,000 pounds.
You're correct.
Okay, which calculates to about 3,000 sheets, and each sheet's like 4 to 10. And I'm sure you know, how many feet's in a mile?
5,200.
280. So if you break that, divide that into, you calculate that's 30,000 feet. That's about 2.5 mile ductwork per school, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
Okay, my calculations on the ductwork, it's about $16.40 per foot insulated in stock. Okay, we're at $1 million, and let's say you had to go, let's go extravagant, $500,000 on these switch gears. Let's say, I don't know if
the fact of the matter is this was bid, and using prior bids and prior jobs of like are fully within the law and saves a bunch of time and potentially dollars in the long run, because this is including engineering, architect fees, mechanical and electrical work all rolled into one. It also includes all the masonry that you spoke of and the updated duct work and switchgear. The switchgear in itself is quite expensive, as you know, as well as the system controllers. But you are definitely, I mean, you've done your homework on the figures and the math, so what I said earlier is that we are willing to compromise with the perception or the misperception out there that we didn't do our due diligence and get the bids, when in fact we used other bids in the process to get this, and that's a legal process. But what we're saying is that whatever falls outside of EESI, we are willing to bid those processes, and if we can save, we will save.
They should have been bids first. Okay, you spend for an analysis from train, first you could save the 100, and you're the director of schools, but you could have come in and possibly got 2 or 3 bids, probably at no cost, to then compare, and then you could pay if you seen which companies you want to go with. And from my understanding, does train have to sub the ductwork too?
Train is operating as a general contractor under the EPSO contracts allowance, and I think that they are going to sub a bunch of that out. What you're maybe mistaken about, Mr. Housewright, a little bit is the fact that we wouldn't be able, if we did a bid process, we wouldn't accept any bids without engineering and architect fee drawings and accurate detailed studies done first. So that $100,000 would have maybe been somewhat cheaper with a different company. I can't answer that, but that we would have paid those up. Either the contractors submitting those bids would have to prepay that, and then once awarded, we would be paying that in the bid package.
Yeah, I might have confused you a little. What I meant was you got maybe 2 or 3 bids to be protective of, because you're the stewards of all the taxpayers' money to the schools, and then which estimate that you saw and was the most efficient work, then done an analysis of maybe one that you chose to go with instead of maybe getting the cart in front of the horse. That's just my opinion, you know.
I understand.
That's all.
Thank you, Mr. Housewright. Mr. Burrell?
Do you have a bid sheet or what we're getting for a buck here? Can I see that?
We have a bid sheet here.
I'd like to clear up one thing. I'm not here to represent Train or the schools. I'm here as y'all's financial advisor to give you all I represent you, the county commission, to do what's in the best interest of the county. I'm under federal law. I have to do financially what's in the best interest of the county. I have a fiduciary duty to y'all to give you the best advice I can. And I'm not pro-Train or con-Train or whatever and then bidding out. I will tell you though, on the $135,000 for the energy study, that was money well spent, because that study not only did it allow us to get here today, but really that study allowed us, or your school system, to leverage that information to submit it to the state, and the state went through and used that information to qualify the county for the EESI loan. And that loan is for right at $5 million, and it's at 0.5 of 1%, which is about 2% below the current market rates. And so basically, you're getting a subsidized loan from the state of Tennessee, and that $135,000 will be paid back within the first year just by using that information that Train was able to put together so that we could qualify for that state loan. And that state loan is not possible without all that information that Train put together. And through the way the process that the state works, they take that information, they verify it, they know exactly what units you have, what units you're replacing it with. They do this all over the state. They have a whole committee over there with professionals throughout the state to verify everything. And so they use that information. the reason you qualified for that loan is they were able to verify everything and confirm that the new equipment being put in will pay for itself over that 16-year period. So whether you're pro-trained, against training, this whole concept, I will tell you that was money well spent, because you will get the schools will get that $135,000 back for that energy study within the first year, just on the interest savings, if you move forward with that loan to put that equipment in, which obviously you probably should do, since the state is basically telling you not only will we lend you the money, but every dollar that you spend, you're going to get back probably plus some to pay it all back. And some of that equipment is very, very old, and it's going to have to be replaced anyway. The state's basically giving you some subsidized dollars to make that happen. So, like I said, not pro-con or any kind, but mathematically that's how that worked and the process worked.
Mr. Barrett, I don't recognize you. And when you
I'm not done. I'm not done.
Okay, well, let me say this. Mr. Barrett, would you take over the chair till I get back? Mr. Rail still not finished.
Okay. Go ahead.
I guess I don't know if you misunderstood what I need. Do you have an actual breakdown of the $9.6 million?
I do. We have covered that in several meetings up to this point, as well as on the job walk and other opportunities throughout the time frame here. I don't have one here this evening.
Go ahead.
Okay, at this time, which I have requested to speak, but since Mr. Brewer passed over the chairman to me, at this time, I'm going to go up to Mr. Dawson Fields, and I'll come back with my comments after Mr. Brewer comes back. So Dawson, go ahead.
Thank you, Commissioner Barrett. I kind of was going to withdraw, but I hate to say it, but I'm going to say it again, just kick it dead horse while it's down, the bid thing. It keeps going through my mind too. I mean, even though we received the information from Train, and they've done their study, can we not use that and bid now? I mean,
What happens in this case is that because this study has been done and it's been made public, other companies, in seeing this public release of information, will use that and undercut the current bidder, the current project.
I got you. I just,
Yeah.
didn't say it. That's all I'm like.
No problem. Can I have Kathy Cox from Train address one of those questions?
Okay. Good evening. It's nice to see everybody. Thank you for having us. I want to start out by saying energy performance contracting is usually something a county or a school only does once every 10 to 15 years. And I'll ask Mr. Gibson to back me up on that. And I'll also ask Mr. Gibson, how many performance contracts have you financed or worked with? Do you know off the top of your
This is
head?
probably my 15th or 20th in just the last 5 or 6 years. And all of them are done the way that this proposed contract is being done. And Train is not the only firm I have worked with. There are about 5, 6, 7 energy firms across the state. They work in various places, but the process is the same. So, matter of fact, I'm working on not just this one, but simultaneously, I'm working on another one right now for another client that is going. We're going to do something before year end for them too. So,
Thank you. So my point in talking about that is the state of Tennessee recognized a long time ago that what we do as an energy services company is professional services. We have mechanical engineers with me tonight, Mr. Craig Washburn. You really can't sling a dead cat in our office without hitting multiple mechanical engineers. So we are an engineering firm. So traditionally, what you're used to is design. You hire an engineer, and you hire an engineer based upon their qualifications, their competence, their integrity, and their reputation. And I will put Train's reputation on the line all the time, all the time. and I'm not asking you to take that from me. We provided a list of references and peers that they could talk to, the school system could talk to in choosing Train to be their energy services partner. We then sat out together to develop what we thought was the best collaborative approach to arriving at this project here. And what happened was, what we do is analyze all the data, and then we sat down with their staff and we said, here's the data, you pick your project. Who knows your project better than you do? They met with the subcontractors, they walked through the subcontractors, we shared together in the library, we talked about what their priority needs were, and that's how the project was developed. Train did not come in and say, this is the project you should do. That's a bad way to get business. So in the state of Tennessee, they see an energy services company. I know a lot of people like to think of us as, heat pumps and rooftop, but we are a global leader in energy services. And so we put a lot of time and energy, no fun, and engineering into providing them with the data, and then they whittled down what we brought to them, an $18 million project, into what's here today. And then we applied for the EESI application. The maximum amount you can borrow from them is $5 million. And we were able to secure that amount, the largest amount for them, as Mr. Gibson said, at 0.5 percentage point. In talking with the schools and in hearing from some of you, they had a great concern that how is this going to be perceived? This is not your traditional design bid bill that we're all so ingrained in. It is something, this is a different process we do once every 10 to 15 years. And it's the school system's way of kind of catching up on all of the deferred maintenance. And the ESCO looks for funding. We've got a grant writer. We're providing STEM curriculum so that the bipolar ionization that has the indoor air quality, that the school kids can actually get online and learn from it. And we have an in-house educator who does that, 30 years from, I believe Indiana is where he's from. So there's so much more that goes into it other than price a 3-ton unit and set it on the roof. You do have to look at structural engineering in the state of Tennessee because of the code. If you go up, how many times? You have to do a structural. 10%. If you go up 10% on the weight, you have to do a structural engineering. And some of the curves, one rooftop unit was taken off and then a curve was adapted and another one was set on. So we'd like to do it right the first time. I've gone on and on, but I did want to share with you some of your neighboring, some of your peers you can reach out to. Roane County, Blount County, Jefferson County, Lenore City, Granger County, Campbell County, Claiborne County, and that's just to name a few who have used Train and gone to, that's just to name a few. I have a list of all the ones in Tennessee, and then you're always, the Office of Energy Programs supports the program, and they also identified the #1 obstacle to performing the contracting was lack of familiarity. I mean, I don't see anybody rushing out to embrace change these days. We're all being forced to change. So I think it is a change, and I'm just asking you to think of a different way of doing this and what's best for the school system. I'm here to answer any questions you might have, and I'm happy to provide phone numbers and references to anyone here tonight. All of our projects, Craig and I have been working together now for 8 years. All of our projects, they're all references for us. Good, bad, the ugly. We've had to work through some stuff, but that's what Train does really well.
I've got a question for you.
Yes, sir.
So you are the one that done the bid?
Done
the bidding process?
We gave them, we presented to the school board our references, our, how we do that, we presented to them, yes.
Do you have a copy of the bid sheet, what you actually bid? Since you don't have it with
It's
him tonight?
professional services. For us, we are hired based on our credentials, our qualifications. It's not this is how much it costs. We are hired based upon our credentials, like an engineering or architectural firm.
So, Mr. Harrell, just to clarify, are you asking for a price breakdown of each individual unit being replaced and total cost?
We provided a project summary.
I'll email that out there to commissioners.
Yeah, we broke it down by school. And that included the LED lighting, the HVAC improvement,
Well, on the lights,
the energy management system, yes, sir.
on the lights, if you already got the fixtures, how come you can't just change the light bulbs instead of going, changing the whole thing?
I'll let Mark Gregory answer your question. He's the guru on it.
Yeah, my name's Mark Gregory. I'm with the Cell Energy Group, and we do the lighting. We specialize in lighting projects. It's an excellent point, but in your particular district, there's 880 fixtures that we propose that we replace the entire fixture. It may be broken, it may be discolored, something. It's not going to look good with a brand new LED light in it for the next 20 years. It's not going to start looking better. And 14,000 of your lights were just replacing the bulbs. So only 880 new fixtures, not getting all new fixtures. But, so, like I said, 14,000 are just replacements.
My question is, when we done this last time, is that project complete and paid for, or do we still own on it?
It will be completely paid this next school year. January, yeah.
So we still owe on the last one also?
On the lighting thing that you said, how many did you say you replaced?
14,000.
But that's, how many are you replacing? 880?
880 brand new fixtures. Like, say this fixture was broken or something, we would replace the entire fixture. So it would look good for the next 20 years. But in 14,000 of them, the fixtures are fine. We'll clean them and then we put back the same fixture.
So how much is one fixture?
I don't have that broken down.
Do we have 880 broken fixtures?
They may be broken.
Or just we got 880 dirty fixtures?
No, they're not dirty. They're broken, or sometimes they're just so out of date that they need to be replaced.
Okay.
But 880 versus 14,000 replacements, that's not a lot.
Well, I'm just trying to gather now how many fixtures we have broke, that many broke fixtures in our schools as well.
Well, a lot of things hit those fixtures.
So also on the units, are any of them broke?
HVAC units?
Yeah.
We have one frozen at Cherokee as of today, and we've had, I think, 6 go down in the last week and a half, and then right now we've got a whole school that we're basically hot wired on right now. The bad thing about HVAC, as you guys know, is that current law prohibits us from operating the school without access to airflow and access to water and toilets. Those are the 3 things that'll close the school down really quickly, and HVAC is our biggest concern right now. I know it's a lot of money. I told the budget committee I would never stand in front of them and ask for a project of this size without doing due diligence and making sure that we're paying and helping to offset the cost in other ways. So
how much is the school putting in on this project?
$5 million.
And where are you taking it from?
2.3 basically covers the cost of the replacement lights. We're gaining $300,000 a year from energy savings, which allows us to get the EESI. The additional remaining amount of that $5 million goes toward the HVAC project. So 2.3 to 2.7.
So, and I mean, I'm just bringing up something here, but we just spent 1.2 million on the football field. That should have been a one-time occurrence, right? So, is there any way we can take that money and put in on this, or is it we can? Or
Take the money from the football?
Well, after, like next year, you should gain some of this 1.2 million back, correct?
No.
The purchase price of the purchase on maintenance of the fields, or I'm lost as to where you're.
That money come out of their undesignated fund balance, Mike.
Well, ain't that part of the 12? Well, that's what I'm saying. Can the schools add more to it if you're getting this 1.2 back over time?
If we're getting back money from energy savings, is that where you're saying that we're getting the money from?
That's what they're gonna do to use to pay the 5 million back, Mike, is what I understand that.
That's what I was getting at. I think that's where you and I think are on the same page, maybe speaking different languages, the same page. So I think when I stood in front of the budget committee, I said I didn't come to you and ask for all 14 million, even though I believe that it's needed for this type of project. And if we can save when we get into the project, if it's approved this evening, my word to you is we're going to save wherever we can save, and that's potentially where we're going to benefit from sending everything from the bar units, the ground units, to the ductwork, to the electrical, to the mechanical out for bid. Utilizing Train's power to be a general contractor for us and saving us money in the long run. If it comes in under that, my word is that we're going to stick to those lower figures as long as they're qualified and meet the specs of the job. I wouldn't stand in front of you if we didn't do our due diligence and identify savings on the EDSI loans to contribute toward the overall package. We're putting in quite a bit over the next 16 years to pay this off because we do believe in this project. If we didn't, we wouldn't put our money where our mouth is, and it's very costly, I get that.
So one more question. On the lights,
Yes, sir.
how long will they last this time?
They're guaranteed to last 10 years. We project they'll last 20 years at least.
So between 10 and 20, we will have to come back and do this again, maybe.
Replace bulbs,
Yeah, you may
replace
replace
LED
them.
bulbs, but not the scope of the same project.
We've been doing 100% LED replacements for a little over 3 years now, and we have not seen any failures to speak of yet. I mean, unless a baseball hits them or something.
The LED technology was not there when we switched from T12s to T8s. That was the last one that you referred to that will be paid off this next year. There's such a significant savings that we originally started talking with Mark when I came on board, just because there was such a significant savings. We couldn't ignore that, at least without it entertaining the idea of what that would benefit us if we moved on it now rather than waiting.
You do have 62 T12s that have escaped being replaced through the years.
Do you have any more questions, Mr. Farrell?
No.
Okay. Mr. Brittle,
Mr. Chairman, I withdraw.
Ms. Speaks,
How many students roughly you graduate each year from each high school?
Graduate each year, a couple hundred per school.
So 400, how long do you expect this to last?
This, meaning the HVAC project, 20, 25 years. The units themselves typically lifespan 20, 25 years. That's where we're at with the current equipment.
And that's 10,000 students. I cannot, and I get that this is a lot more money, and I get the principle behind the bidding, but I just don't see how any commissioner that voted yes for turf can turn around and vote no for this. I know a commissioner stood up and said, we're looking at these athletes that were here that night and saying, telling them they don't matter. Well, what you're gonna do is tell these 10,000 tax-paying, who has parents that pays taxes in Hawkins County, me being one of them, and who inevitably, before this is all over, will be taxpayers themselves. Tell them no and that they don't matter.
Mr. Barrett,
Mr. Hickson, if I followed the chain of thought correctly, basically the school system's in for $136,000, pretty much.
If we were to walk away today, yes, sir.
Okay, and I understand the concept of it being basically a turnkey job, architectures, building codes, permits, and all of that. In some of the correspondence I've had with you, as far as brands and things that the school system had now. I think you told me y'all had York and Carrier and different types of equipment. And I understand the concept of the integrated controls needing to match up. In the paperwork that's been passed out, was a comment that in the paperwork that you use bids from other school districts as due diligence. So I guess my question is, if you're in for $136,000 and what's been in the papers, the bond issues, things like that, you know, rocket scientists basically could probably get pretty close to what Train's quote is for. But I have trouble understanding the concept of why you would not go out and get other bids from the people that have these integrated controls and stuff that are in place and exist now. If you can come back with a different lower bid, you would recoup your $136,000.
I can answer the control piece. We mentioned to a local vendor contractor that asked why we were interested in the train controls, and we described what the train controls allowed us the flexibility to do, shut down systems from Seth's phone, for example. If we have a snow day, completely shut it down. Same thing in the summer if we have a non-school day that was unexpected for whatever reason. Those types of things and the flexibility that we have in our using Train over the last couple of years and gaining from experience, we described that process to the local vendor, and they said, well, you've got us there, we can't compete with that. And we had a carrier issue at one of our middle schools, and I'm not here to badmouth any vendor or contractor, but it took 4 days for us to get a response from that particular maintenance outfit that works on that unit for the complete school that went down. And on the 4th day, we called Trains, not even their equipment. They called and rectified it within a matter of hours. Their customer service is paramount, it's been the most dependable. And when we're dealing with the decisions of having to close school down, when we lose HVAC controls or HVAC use, and we're faced with decisions on whether to close the school down or get the immediate assistance, if we can't get that immediate assistance, we gotta make some really tough decisions which impact families and impact students. And that's just the same as what we have with water or sewer or anything else that would affect the closure. So it's very important to us that we have immediate response on some of that stuff.
Okay, if I may ask you one more question. You mentioned that local people cannot basically get you up and running.
Well, it's not that they couldn't, it's just that the last several years in working with my staff, I have heard over and over again and seen example after example where we have not seen the level of service that's been afforded to us by Train.
Okay.
And here, I want to go back to any misperception that they came to us and made any promises. We sought them out based on what we knew they were capable of and the scope of this project.
Okay. I guess, you know, some of the research that I've done, there's other companies and stuff that do exactly what Train does. There's a couple of them are Johnson Controls. There's a Comfort Maker, I think, up towards Bristol, things like that. I guess the services that Train offers may have its own specialty to it, but I think there's other companies out there that would be competitive. Yes, sir. Thank you.
You're welcome. Mr. Barrett, do you have any other questions?
No, sir.
I don't have a button that I can push, but I want to go on the board and I want to turn it back over to you.
Back to me. Okay, well, let's go back then, and we'll go to, looks like it's Mr. Larry Claus.
Ms. Barker's next.
Oh, I'm sorry. Nancy, go ahead.
Thank you. and I gotta kind of agree with what, Ms. Speak said. You know, we're looking at vents that are 40 years old. If anybody, for those who went out there to both the schools, I want to thank you for going out there and looking. I think it was an eye opener for everybody that was out there. You know, we're looking at vents that are 40 years old. When my son went out there, and that was several years ago, we had vents leaking through the roof that needed repaired at that time. He's been out of school for 12, 13 years now. So, you know, we can keep kicking this thing down the road. We've got units that are 25 years old, and if one goes down, what's gonna happen? We can't send kids to school without heat. We can't send them to school without air. If we get this done, we've got a cost savings from the loss of air from the vents. If you went out there and saw the vents, you would see that that is definitely a replacement that is needed. The upgrade to the HVAC system is going to be a cost savings, because you can't tell me one that's 25 years old that when we put the new ones in are not going to be more energy efficient. You know, we're getting one of the lowest interest rates that we're probably ever going to get. You know, bad timing for a pandemic, but the good thing about a pandemic is lowered interest rates. So we're getting probably one of the lowest interest rates that we can. I know it's a lot of money, and I know but, you know, just like Ms. Speak said, we've got kids that are going to be going out there for a lot of years. And, you know, we can keep kicking this down the road, and it's not going to get any cheaper, or we can go ahead and try to get it fixed. So thank you.
That's a good point. I mean, the schedule you have in your packet is a 2.5% rate, and that rate's high in today's market. If we can get this done, we could possibly get below 2% locked in for the next 20 years. So that, and with the state loan at 0.5, you're looking at cost of funds. I mean, you're essentially paying back very little interest over the next 20 years. It's almost all principal in the scheme of things. And there's another point that we made at the schools and in the budget committees. The schools are willing to sit down and have a conversation at some point in the future about what the energy savings are. You know, but they just can't measure those energy savings today. So at some point, there may be a conversation between the schools and the county commission of what they can do to maybe help out even more than the $5 million that they are committing to now to pay back. So they're not making a guarantee, but I think everyone feels pretty strongly that once the ductwork is replaced and we go a couple years operating, that they will have a much better idea of what those actual energy savings are, and there could be some possibilities to have some conversations about, you know, how, you know, can the schools do more to help support this project. So not guaranteeing it, but both sides have expressed a willingness to have that conversation in the future. So,
and that speaks to Mr. Harrell's got a question about the use of savings. Any additional savings realized from this project would be obviously used to go back in to pay that off.
Okay. Commissioner Barton, do you have any more questions?
No, I'm finished.
Okay, Mr. Clarence, you're up next.
I'd just like to say that, go on the record, that I support the energy, that's one of those words I can't pronounce, updates to the school, from LED lighting to the HVAC. I was there on October 14th, I took the tour at the Cherokee High School, and we were showed ductwork that was held together with large blue rubber bands, and we were shown damper control units that are torn up and unplugged, not working. Who does the work at what cost? I'm willing to listen to my colleagues.
I'll pass this around. It's a picture that I made.
Yeah, just took a picture. I helped you somewhere. Also, nothing's been said here tonight about the 50 ionization air cleaners that's going to be installed for each school. And just from my personal experience, my heating and air unit at my home 5 years ago was costing me from $400 to $450 at peak times in February and August. And I put in a new system, and my recent bill in August was $225. for cooling, and last February it was around the same thing, about 225, 250. So I know that there's savings to be had, and I don't want to be a part of a commission that people 10 years from now is going to say we kicked the can down the road. I'm willing to support the education department, and also I might add that it's 100%, I believe, by the school board members that they support you on this, Mr. Hickson.
That's what the vote was, and I do appreciate their support. I appreciate what you're saying. That you guys don't know me. I've been here almost 2 years, just shy of 2 years. Some of you don't know me real well, but when I care enough to take something to my own board that's this potentially costly, it's because I truly believe it needs to be done, and I truly believe that it was done correctly in its analysis and the scope of the project or the work. We're talking about hundreds of hours of fashioning ductwork. We're talking about remodeling a lot of the school. A lot of this has to be done outside the school hours, outside the school day. The labor and the time working after hours and to fit us in, all of those things have to figure in there, and I know it's expensive, but I appreciate all the questions. Your job is to do due diligence by the taxpayers. I also share in that burden, and I don't take it lightly to bring a $13 to $15 million total projects to the commission and to the taxpayers without knowing that it's very important, very much needed, and I feel that the scope of work has been laid out correctly.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Hickson. Mr. Fields?
Got a question.
Call the question.
I'd like to still, hopefully I'm on the board.
We got 2 people on the board.
Question's been called.
I object to question.
I mean, if y'all got questions, if it's gonna help you with your decision, I mean, no, it's not my call.
Mr. Fields?
Sir.
What would be your advice on this situation? I've got Commissioner calling for the question, I've got people on the board.
Call for question. If there is an objection, it has to pass by 2/3 of the commission. If that comes off the table.
Okay.
If there's an objection to it, then you have to vote and see if you have 2/3 agree to cut off the table. Call for
Mr. Barrett,
Okay.
I'll withdraw mine.
You withdraw yours.
I think
If
everybody.
I can speak for just a minute, we won't even worry about it. Can you give me a minute?
You gonna call it, that right?
I mean, I stepped down so I can speak on this, and, you know, I want everybody to realize one thing. There is a need for what we're talking about. Matt and I talked about it, and there's no doubt that there is a need for this. But I promise you one thing, Mr. Housewright has done his homework. And the figures he gave you tonight, even if you double those figures, there's a tremendous savings if we bid this whole project out. And, you know, that's my whole concern from the very beginning is, you know, we don't award something just because we want somebody to do it. Let's put it out there for competitive bids, see what we come up with, and then decide what we want to do. But I promise you that Mr. Housewright's figures, even if you double them, that's a tremendous savings to what we're talking about. And he's not off twice that amount. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Brewer. Okay, Mr. Eaton, you withdrew your questions or comments, correct?
While we're here, I've been in the county there to the school system. And I agree with everybody about to a certain point about bids, but I've seen things bid in this county that has cost us more money. We also need to remember about back when the schools were built, how much more it cost us because we kept delaying what we had to do, what we needed to do, and it cost millions and millions of dollars because of that. So we need to think about this pretty serious today and see if we can actually save money by going ahead and doing this or wait, on this. And the word bid just runs cold chills down my spine because we bid stuff out and it was junk. And I just don't like the word bid at all.
Okay, I believe the board is clear. So I guess at this time, we're ready to vote on the resolution. Ms. Davis, will you,
We're voting on the machine.
okay, everybody cast your votes?
Commissioner Trent,
Is this a resolution to vote for or against the school program?
yes, ma'am.
No.
Commissioner Housebrook,
No.
thank you. 10 no, 10 yes, 9 no, 2 absent.
Resolution fails. Motion to suspend the rules carries. Commissioner Gibson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. When I get through reading this, I do have a correction I will need to make on it. To the Honorable Rick Bruce, Chairman, members of the Hawkins County Board of Commissioners, regular session at this 26th day of October 2020, the resolution reference approval of an energy efficient school initiative loan agreement for lighting and HVAC for the schools in Hawkins County's system in the amount not to exceed more than $4,966,890 and for a 16-year period. Whereas Hawkins County Commission, the governing body, is duly elected legislative body of Hawkins County, Tennessee, the county, whereas the governing body is charged with looking after the best interests of the citizenry of Hawkins County, Tennessee, whereas it is the best interest of the citizenry to provide good schools and good places of learning for the children and students of the county, whereas there is available to the county an energy efficient school initiative loan agreement in accord with Tennessee Code Annotated 49-17-101. Whereas the county hereby determines that it is necessary and advisable to enter into a loan agreement for the purpose of providing funds to finance the cost of the construction, improvements, renovation, equipping, design, and site development of the school buildings, the acquisition of all related property, real and personal property, and payments of legal, physical, and administrative architecture and engineering costs incident thereto the project. Now, right here is where I'd like to insert something at this line right here. It says, whereas as the previous loans, the debt will be retired by the Hawkins County Board of Education and is projected to be funded from the savings of the energy efficient units. The loan agreement will be repaid over 16 years at 0.5 interest in the total amount not to exceed the $4,966,890 to finance the project. And therefore, be it resolved that the Hawkins County Commission approved the entering into the Energy Efficient School Initiative Loan Agreement by the Hawkins County School Board in the amount of not to exceed $4,966,890 to the Office of Division of the State Government Finances Loan Administrator under the Tennessee Code Annotated 49-17-101 to be paid by the Energy Efficient School Council of the State of Tennessee at 0.5% to be paid over 16 years in equal payments. Witness this 26th day of October 2020 at the regular meeting of the Hawkins County Commission. Mr. Chairman, I so move.
Motion by Commissioner Gibson. Yeah. The change that you made.
Okay, thank you.
Motion by Commissioner Gibson. Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Kern. Any discussion? Mr. Barrett.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Is this resolution, basically, is this part of the resolution, is it not a part of the proposal that was considered by the people of Train? Is that not included in that?
The EESI covers the lighting project, which generates a savings of $300,000, over $300,000 a year to us. Because of that energy savings, along with the energy savings from the rooftop units, the HVAC units that we will replace under the 5 million, we're afforded this loan at this rate. So the rooftop units are going to be part of this scope of EESI along with the lighting project. The rest of the project, as determined this evening, would go out to bid.
Okay. Thanks.
Mr. Burrell.
Can you reread that change you made there?
I sure will. Okay, it says, whereas as of previous loans, the debt will be retired by the Hawkins County Board of Education and is projected to be funded from the savings of the energy efficient units. Do you want me to read the rest of that, or is it done enough?
And when you say units, is that what? What's units?
The lighting and the HVAC units. The lighting and the HVAC, the rooftop HVAC units are generating the savings, affording us the ability to apply for this loan. So that's the $300,000 per year savings. So that money, in essence, we would budget the same utility bills or budget for the subsequent 16 years, and the savings we generate off of the lighting upgrades and the HVAC upgrades would then go back to repayment of this EESI.
As an energy services company, we guarantee that savings, and that's part of EESI, that we have to guarantee those savings every year. So the, lighting and the new efficient rooftop units, we had enough energy savings from those two things to get as much as we possibly could from EESI at that low interest rate. So between the HVAC units and the lighting, we're guaranteeing that savings, and that's enough savings to pay the loan back without having to borrow any money outside of that.
Thank you.
Is there any other questions? If not, everyone cast your vote.
Commissioner Trent? Commissioner Trent?
Here.
Thank you.
Here.
Commissioner Housewright?
I'm sorry, he said no, I lost the speakerphone on this. Hang on, Charles. Okay, Charlie, go ahead and say that again.
No.
Thank you.
you.
You're welcome.
Yes, 6 no, 2 absent.
Resolution carries.